It's a clash of the titans as Ford Mondeo takes on Volkswagen Passat. Which is best? Let's find out. In order to do this, we'll compare the cars in 4 key areas: practicality, dashboard layout, what they're like to drive, and how affordable they'll be to buy and run. In terms of luggage capacity, it's actually the Passat that wins on paper, with 590 litres of space versus the 540 that you get in the Mondeo. However, as a saloon, you're restricted by the narrow opening, whereas in the Mondeo you get a great big hatchback. Either way, both are enormous, and if you need more space, you could always buy the estate version, or failing that, an HGV. Those in the rear are well served in either car, with plenty of leg and headroom, and space to fit 3 adults with ease. First blow goes to the Mondeo then. Its more practical boot helping it to score a perfect 10 out of 10 for space, compared with the Passat's 9. Now let's see what they're like in the front. Right, this is the Passat, and boy is it classy in here. In fact, with these swathes of metal and soft touch materials, it's really not far off an Audi in terms of quality. And of course there's lots of adjustment in the seat and the steering wheel, so it's easy to find a good driving position. Plus, plenty of cup holders and cubby holes in which to store your things. And this central infotainment system has a really crisp display and is also intuitive and responsive to use. All in all, this Passat gives a really nice environment in which to cover a lot of miles. Jumping into the Mondeo, we can also see that there's a good amount of storage here. However, compared with the Passat, these materials just feel a bit cheap and nasty in places. And although this central touchscreen is bigger than the one you get in the Volkswagen, the controls can be quite laggy at times, plus some of these buttons are small and quite fiddly to use. Although it might be slightly lacking in interior quality, the Mondeo makes up for it in how enjoyable it is to drive. This 2-litre diesel engine is really quite smooth, and while it might not have the mid-range punch you'd expect, it's still plenty fast enough for most situations, and that's whether you go for the 150 horsepower version or the 180 horsepower. Where the Mondeo really shines is in its ride and handling. Even on 19-inch wheels, the suspension is cosseting, but not at the expense of how much fun this car is in the corners. This steering is really beautifully weighted, and the whole car feels very agile. It really is a class act. As you can probably tell from the slightly bored expression on my face, I have now switched and I'm driving the Passat, because while the Mondeo proves that big cars can also be a hoot to drive, the Volkswagen instead places an emphasis very much on easy progress. This steering, for example, is super light and requires quite a lot of wheel twirling before much happens. Volkswagen's 2-litre diesel engine does at times sound a little bit gruff, particularly when mated with this DSG automatic gearbox. However, you do get that mid-range surge of torque that you miss out on in the Mondeo, and because the engine quietens down at speed and the suspension is soft, this makes for a very good motorway cruiser. Even so, the Mondeo has the edge for driving, although we must add that both of these cars are so big that finding a suitable parking space at the end of your journey can be a challenge. Finally, we move on to affordability, and it's a very close run thing. If you go for one of these 2-litre diesel models, it's the Passat that's marginally more fuel efficient. However, if you choose a 1.6 diesel, the Mondeo is more frugal. While model for model the Ford is a bit cheaper to buy, VWs traditionally hold their value better, and so should prove a slightly more prudent financial bet in the long run. What's more interesting is that cars like these are just as much in competition with the likes of the Nissan Qashqai and BMW 3 Series, which have massively eaten into their market share in recent years and are just as worthy of a place on your shortlist. But this is a head-to-head, so what wins? Well, with buying and running costs so similar, it's really too close to call. So maybe this comes down to whether you want the best interior, that is the Passat, or the car that's more fun to drive, that is the Mondeo. Overall, both score 8 out of 10, which I suppose makes this a draw. Oh, come on, we can't have a draw. Mondeo wins for me. Tell us what you think in the comments below. If you click up here, you can read detailed reviews of both of these cars at the Telegraph Cars website, and don't forget to click down here to subscribe to our YouTube channel.